From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. We begin in Venezuela, where the government-backed cryptocurrency, the Petro, has raised $1 billion in orders. President Nicolás Maduro said almost 1 million people have visited the Petro website to learn about or purchase the oil-based digital coin. He says interest came from far and wide, from Colombia to China and from Singapore to Spain. The pre-sale of the Petro will continue until March 19. Trading will begin in April. Amidst the claims of success, Venezuela is now preparing for the launch of a second cryptocurrency. It is called Petro Gold or Petro Oro, and it will be backed by Venezuela's reserves of gold and precious metals. President Nicolás Maduro is expected to unveil details on the purchase of Petro Gold next week. The cryptocurrencies are seen as a way to bypass economic sanctions imposed on Venezuela by the U.S. Those sanctions have made it difficult for Venezuela to import vital goods, such as medicine. As a result, Venezuelans are finding more inventive ways to feed their needs. Our correspondent in Caracas, Freddie Gillingham, has more.
The Central University of Caracas has opened its doors to the public. Each day, a queue forms outside the pharmacology department. Here, people of all ages wait for prescriptions, which are cheaper and more easily available here than they are outside in the pharmacies. Basic formulas for medicines are made here by students from David de Sousa's department. David is in charge of a group of eager young students who have swapped homework for the real thing. Their work has become a lifeline to this community. The US and its allies began sanctioning the country in 2017, cutting off its access to credit and markets. These sanctions are affecting the importing of goods, and most importantly, medicines.
Because of the country's medicine crisis, the service has retaken its importance and function as a service that helps the patients, solving the lack of medicine in the market.
A huge amount of basic goods have been and continue to be subsidized under the Bolivarian Revolution. One of its trademark policies, cheap and easy access to life-saving medicines, is at the top of this list of subsidies. Much of the world media have focused on the country's dwindling medical supplies and how it is threatening the lives of its people. But are we being told the full story? Freddie Gillingham, teleSUR, Caracas.
The Venezuelan Electoral Commission has invited CARICOM to be part of the International Observers team for the presidential elections in April. The National Electoral Council also invited the United Nations. The head of the council said in a tweet that 2 international organizations have been invited to oversee the elections, and that complies with the Electoral Mission for Transparent Polls. Jorge Arreaza has met with his Congolese counterpart, Jean-Claude Gakoso, as his dignity tour continues through Africa. The two discussed new agreements on energy, mining, education, and culture. Gakoso highlighted the potential Venezuela has as one of the biggest oil producers and how both countries can mutually benefit from further bilateral cooperation. So after Thursday's huge march by unions, social groups, and political parties in Argentina's capital, Buenos Aires, a new opposition movement has formed to protest against Mauricio Macri's government.
After the mass mobilization from worker unions on Wednesday, many people are calling for more resistance in Argentina against the policies of Mauricio Macri.
Contra las políticas de ajuste.
This massive demonstration left a clear message. The people opposed these policies and punishments against workers. We are against destruction of our livelihoods. President Macri must listen, but until now, he hasn't.
Thousands of people have been calling for an end to the massive layoffs happening daily that hits the poor hardest.
viven a diario.
This movement has consolidated as a space for workers to fight, and it will surely be the one leading the social struggle in Argentina.
We cannot stand any more inflation, and we don't agree with the salaries proposed, which are way below inflation levels. We won't tolerate social and economic policies that try to lower our salaries.
The crowd was formed by social movements calling for an emergency food law to help thousands of people who struggle to put at least one meal on their table every day.
A miles de personas que no tienen un plato de alimentos para poder comer.
We have shown the strength of resistance against the neoliberal economic model in spite of the government's and media attempts to divide us, not only in Argentina but in the whole region.
After the demonstrations, union leaders agreed that forming an opposition movement against the conservative government of Mauricio Macri is a good idea. They warn that they'll stay united and that there will likely be a general strike in the future.
And after this, Argentinian authorities said the demonstrations in Buenos Aires gathered only 90,000 people, and that this was just another protest they have seen in recent months. The estimated 400,000 strong rally against President Mauricio Macri's austerity measures, massive layoffs, and subsidy cuts took over the main avenues of the capital. The marches were organized by national unions and social organizations. We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. Let's go to Peru now, where 15 landing strips in the Peruvian jungle were blown up by the government on Thursday. They were reportedly used for cocaine trafficking. The landing strips, together with drug lab structures, were destroyed using dynamites. The area was used by drug cartels to manufacture and transport cocaine between Peru and neighboring countries such as Bolivia, Paraguay, and Brazil. Peru is one of the world's biggest cocaine producers. Back to Argentina, where a joint police operation with Russia has led to the arrest of 6 suspected drug traffickers. The two countries were cooperating in an investigation into the trafficking of drugs via the Russian embassy in Buenos Aires. The probe started in 2016 when almost 400 kilograms of cocaine were found in the embassy. The Russian ambassador then called local authorities to report that traffickers were trying to move the drugs by way of a diplomatic flight. And there is renewed hope of peace in Colombia. The Colombian government and the National Liberation Army, or ELN, are negotiating a possible ceasefire that will stay in place until after the general election in August. At that point, peace talks will resume with the next administration. The two sides have had 4 rounds of talks in Ecuador. Negotiations broke down in January, and since then, the ELN and the United Nations have been urging Colombia to return to the negotiating table. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights is meeting in Colombia. Our correspondent Lorena Hoyos was there for the opening ceremony.
A special session of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights has begun in Bogotá. President Juan Manuel Santos was present during the inauguration. He was joined by government representatives and the president of the IACHR. President Santos said that the session was a historic moment for the country, given the current that Colombia is going through. So far, it's been established that Colombia will not be included among the subjects to be discussed, as it is the host nation. Issues on the agenda come from countries such as Cuba, Guatemala, Ecuador, Venezuela, and Peru. Some of these discussions will deal with human rights. Former President Fujimori's pardon, the 25th anniversary of the Truth Commission in El Salvador, and the cultural rights of indigenous women in Guatemala. The special sessions will run until March 2nd.
Lorena Hoyos from Bogotá. Chile is ranked as the top country in South America in combating corruption and the 26th in the world. Transparency International, a global NGO dedicated to fighting corruption in government, released its annual corruption index for 2017, ranking countries in the world from least corrupt to the most. In 2016, Chile passed a law to prevent conflicts of interest in the public sector. Brazil, Peru, and Panama tied for 96, while Ecuador ranked 117. Venezuela came in at 169. Allegations of sexual abuse continue to pile on the Catholic Church. A group of people claiming to be victims of sexual abuse by members of the Marist Brothers congregation in Santiago is asking the Vatican to also consider their case. The spokesperson for the group has requested a meeting with Archbishop Charles Chicluna, who is currently in Santiago investigating an alleged sexual abuse cover-up by a Catholic bishop.
What we are asking for is that this previous investigation, which will reach the hands of the Marist Provincial, who is the one who has to sanction, what we want is for this investigation to reach the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. We're talking about one of the largest cases of ecclesiastical abuse in the history of the world. We are talking about dozens of victims and dozens of religious members involved. And what we are looking for is real reconciliation with the Church.
And the election race in Costa Rica has prompted a rise in attacks against LGBT people. Human rights groups say they've recorded 26 attacks since the rise of the LGBT community took center stage in campaigning. Evangelical candidate Fabricio Alvarado, who is the front-runner, is known for his uber-conservative and homophobic views. He has condemned the legalization of gay marriage. And the recovery efforts are underway in Bolivia after intense rainstorms and flooding displaced thousands of people. Here's Freddy Morales, our La Paz correspondent, with more.
Bolivia's civil defense informed about 2,000 new families affected by natural disasters during rain season. Updates in the official report confirm a total of 17,108 affected families until now. Families who suffered of collateral damage are now 971. Also, 337 homes were totally destroyed, and 8 people died because of intense rains. More than 50,000 hectares of crops were also destroyed by floodings. After the announcement of a decrease of rains made by Meteorology Service, the state is coordinating with municipalities and various inner governments to start helping plans. They stated that they have $1 million for house reconstructions. The country is in a state of emergency. 5 out of 9 departments have declared a yellow alert, and 4 have declared orange alert.
That was Freddy Morales from La Paz. In Brazil, officials have put the city of Rio de Janeiro on alert after 5 communities were affected by flooding. The floods caused electricity blackout, and it also uprooted trees, but injuries have not been reported. The meteorological services predict moderate rains throughout the west and southern areas of the country. The areas most affected by the rains are Copacabana and Botafogo. As Puerto Rico tries to recover from Maria, U.S. officials are saying it is time for the island to rebuild its power system from scratch. The director of the district that oversees Puerto Rico said now is the perfect opportunity to rebuild a resilient power generation and distribution network. but he gave no word on who would fund the project. Maria left 3.5 million people without electricity. In Trinidad and Tobago, regional corporations are fighting to keep the beaches free from sargassum seaweed ahead of the turtle nesting season. Since 2015, hundreds of tons of seaweed have washed up on the shores of the north and southeast coast of Trinidad, where the endangered leatherback turtle travels every year to nest. The seaweed itself isn't deadly, but high mounds which pile up on the sand make it difficult for turtles to lay their eggs. A hard day's work needs to be rewarded, regardless of age. That was recognized in Peru, where public pressure has prompted the government to suspend allowing young students to be employed without pay.
Peru's legislator had previously approved a law that allowed companies to employ students for 4 hours a day for 3 years without any compensation. The New Peru Party voted against the bill, saying that it was slavery, masked as professional training.
This law makes the students enslaved. Not recognizing the right to be paid is a
We apologize for that. We go to another story where a group of scientists in Mexico want to combat breast cancer by using nanotechnology. Let's take a closer look at this research.
Researchers at the Metropolitan Autonomous University's Iztapalapa campus have been working for 6 years on developing a treatment using gold nanoparticles to combat breast cancer.
We were looking for alternatives to existing therapies. Mainly we wanted to avoid secondary effects from chemo, which devastates many patients.
Scientists discovered that rough surface nanoparticles are capable of destroying carcinogenic cells. The procedure is still experimental, but it's about to move to a new stage that could show its true potential.
We've got
a model using carcinogenic cells in a chicken embryo, which mimics the desired environment well enough. We're going to see how the nanoparticles interact with the cells in a living environment.
Regardless, the biggest hurdle is for the technology to meet the medical needs of patients.
It's difficult to simply say that since the nanoparticle worked in a lab, we can do human trials. We must first pass many tests, using specific drugs. We must pass through many filters so that our patients have confidence in us.
Developing treatments such as these are very important, given that every year almost 1.4 million breast cancer cases are diagnosed. In Mexico, breast cancer is the main cause of death for women over 25.
I know
a woman, she's the wife of a friend, who was diagnosed with breast cancer and she recovered. She helped me through my diagnosis. She gave me advice on what to do. I trust in science and in doctors. I know I can overcome this.
In most cases, breast cancer is diagnosed at an advanced stage. This is one of the reasons why self-examinations are recommended as a way to extend life expectancy.
We'll take one last short break. Join us after a look at what our multimedia team is reporting. Welcome back. Now let's have a look at some other news from around the world.
In the latest investigation into the Florida school shooting, the country sheriff Scott Israel has said that the armed deputy assigned to the campus did not engage with the gunman during the school attack that led to the killing of 17 people. The deputy has resigned, but this has led to many questioning the US President Donald Trump's advice to arm the teachers to control gun attacks in schools. There has been wide criticism from parents and teachers associations.
It's a terrible idea. And frankly, it will actually cause worse problems. It will send a false sense of security, and it will bring more guns into schools instead of less. Parents, children, teachers, I don't know how to say this more plaintively, want schools to be safe sanctuaries for learning and for teaching.
U.S. Special Counsel Robert Mueller has filed fresh criminal charges against President Donald Trump's former campaign manager, Paul Manafort. Mueller has also charged both Manafort and his business partner Rick Gates for bank and tax fraud. They are already facing criminal charges, including conspiracy to launder money and conspiracy to defraud the United States. The special prosecutor is also investigating a possible collusion between the Trump campaign and a Russian intelligence operation to skew the 2016 presidential election. The UN Security Council will vote on a draft resolution demanding a 30-day truce in Syria to allow aid deliveries and medical evacuations. Russia had proposed on Thursday amendments to the resolution drafted by Sweden and Kuwait, arguing that the language was unrealistic and that the 15-member Security Council could not simply impose a truce on Syria without consulting the relevant parties.
We will not succumb to those who have supported terrorism in Syria. We will not be complacent to the plans of the governments of 5 countries that met in Washington last month to divide Syria.
The Deputy Director of the United Nations Children's Agency UNICEF, Justin Forsyth, has resigned following allegations of inappropriate behavior. 2 women have complained against his comments and behavior when he was the charity's chief executive in 2011 and 2015. In another charity aid controversy, British social organisation Oxfam authorization to operate in Haiti has been temporarily revoked by the government. Haiti's Planning and External Cooperation Minister Aviol Florent said the decision had been made on the grounds of serious failings by Oxfam between 2010 and 2011, and that a definitive decision on the charity's right to operate in Haiti would be made in about 2 months.
And residents of the Mexican town of Paracho have paid tribute to their local hero, Germán Vázquez Rubio, who created the guitar featured in the Disney film Coco. 65-year-old Vázquez Rubio gained international recognition as the creator of the guitar featured in the movie. The animated film has received positive reviews and boosted the small town's guitar sales, as well as its tourist industry.
Well, I'm very excited and have a lump in my throat, because emotion invades my heart. It is something I did not expect, but thank God that this has happened, for the good of all. Working together as a team, with love, everything is going to go well.
In Spain, the Supreme Court has sentenced a musician to 3.5 years in jail for insulting the crown. Spanish rapper Valtonyc has been sent to prison for criticizing the Spanish monarchy in one of his songs. The artist talks about the former king's sexual affairs, his designation under Franco's regime, and corruption cases surrounding the royal family. And with this, we've come to the end of this morning news brief. This and many other stories, you can find them on our website, telesurtv.net/English. You can also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.